What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celios Network. Today we're taking a look at the best decks in standard format in October 2021 for the Pokemon trading card game. The newest main set out currently for this format is Evolving Skies, and we do have the small edition of the 25th anniversary mini set Celebrations, which does have a couple of notable cards that are standard format legal. This top 10 decks list will be based on results, estimated matchup spreads, and my own personal opinion. So, of course, please leave your opinions and comments down below and let me know what you think about my top 10 decks, if you would put them in a different order, or if you even think I have missed some decks that should be in this list. Of course, shout out to Limitless TCG and also Trainer Hill. Play.limitlesstcg.com makes all of these results and tournaments possible, and Trainer Hill does some awesome data analysis on their website. My sponsors are PotownStore.com, the best place to get PTCGO codes, and please use code CELIO for 5% off. You can also use code CELIO for 5% off at my newest sponsor, CardTrooperGames.com, where they supply physical card products like singles and sealed products, including pre-orders. So at the time of recording this video, they do have Fusion Strike booster box pre-orders in stock. So head on over there and use code CELIO for 5% off. And also PokemonCard.io, you can find all of my standard format deck lists that I currently have built over there on my PokemonCard.io page, and all the links for this are in the description down below. So on the left here, you'll see my September top 10 decks from my last monthly best decks video, and on the right over here are the top 10 we'll be covering today. The same decks are in each list, but I have ordered them differently for this month's top 10, and I have a little green plus mark next to a deck if it has moved up in my top 10, a red minus if it has moved down, and the blue equal sign for the one deck that has stayed the same spot I had it last time. So let's start all the way up at the top in number 1, where I have Single Strike Urshifu Umbreon this month. Last month I had it down in number 6 because Stefan Ivanov had just won the CELIOSTATS 2 tournament with it, but I wanted to see if it stuck around and continued to prove itself, and it did. And that has put it up at number 1 in my opinion. Number 2 is Suicune Ludicolo. Again, it's a deck that started showing up and started being really good and performing really well, but I wanted to make sure it stuck around, and it did, so we've moved it up 1. Dragapult VMAX, I think it has come off of its initial, whatever you want to call it, surprise factor or initial rush of popularity, because it was so much cheaper in comparison to so many other newer decks, and also countering the Rapid Strike Urshifu. Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX is still very good, but is not very popular. But Dragapult VMAX is a good deck for other reasons as well, because it does prey on all of the Sobble Drizzile engines around there, because those are easy pickings for Dragapult VMAX's Max Phantom. So Dragapult VMAX moving down to number 3, just because Single Strike and Suicune Ludicolo have such raw power that Dragapult does not, but Dragapult is still up here in my tier 1 area of things. At number 4 is Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, also moving up. Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX is a great deck, but it's a deck that others are prepared for, but Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX has really fallen off since the last monthly best deck video, and that's a bad matchup for Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. And Dragapult VMAX is still popular, but not as popular, and decks and players and just the metagame as a whole at the beginning of this format back in September were very prepared for Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, and that has kind of worn off a little bit. And I think Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX is in a fine space now, but it's not like the best deck in format. Number 5 is Jolteon VMAX. Jolteon VMAX is great, and it would probably be number 1 or number 2 for me if we just eradicated both of the Urshifus. The Urshifus existing keeps Jolteon VMAX in check and stops it from being the very best deck, but I think it's a really great deck. And honestly, I think I would say Single Strike and Suicune were almost tied for number 2, and then Rapid Strike and Jolteon were kind of tied for me for 4 and 5, and then Dragapult VMAX, I think I'm comfortable with making it the number 3 deck. Leafeon VMAX also moving up. Again, it was a deck that I liked. I wanted to keep my bias from influencing my spot in September, and I wanted to see if it stuck around. That's what happened with a lot of these decks. You'll see more reliable, more pre-existing decks were going higher on my rankings last time. We had Dragapult, we had Shadow Rider, we had Zacian, we had Rapid Strike, all higher, and then some of the decks that had just started coming out, like Single Strike Urshifu Umbreon, Jolteon, Sylveon, Leafeon, we kept, or I kept a lot of those lower on the list to let them kind of prove themselves. But Leafeon is one of the only decks in the competitive metagame that consistently has a favored matchup to Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, which is great for it. And its matchup spread is not impressive outside of that, but it's also not bad outside of that. It has a very kind of mid matchup spread. At number 7 is Ice Rider Calyrex, specifically Ice Rider Calyrex with Suicune. And this deck is kind of just fine right now. I do think it's better than the decks at 8, 9, and 10, but I also don't think it's amazing. But I think it's strong. It's quite strong. It doesn't have anything amazing going for it, though. Single Strike Urshifu VMAX Umbreon has gust abilities. It has the potential to one-shot anything. Suicune Ludicolo can one-shot things. Dragapult has type advantage in its favor, plus the ability to snipe a lot of decks setup Pokemon. Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX is such an insane card, and with a deck build around it, it's amazing against anything but hard counters. Jolteon VMAX is able to just spread 200 onto the board for 1 energy and then share all of its health away. Leafeon VMAX has a good matchup against probably the best deck in format, Single Strike Urshifu VMAX. And then we get down to Ice Rider Calyrex, and it's solid. It's just solid. Sylveon VMAX has inconsistencies. It can be a bit of a clunky deck because its strength is all of the stuff you can toss into it, right? And that's its strength. So you can't take away all of the techs or a lot of the techs and the deck be good, but you can't keep the techs and have it be a very, very consistent deck. So I don't think Sylveon VMAX can be one of the absolute top decks, but it's a very strong deck. And all of these decks that I'm talking about today are good decks. They're all strong. Regardless if it's number 1 or number 10, these are competitive decks within the metagame. Number 9 is Zacian Zamazenta, which has fallen off finally. I predicted that it would have fallen off after week 1 of the format, but it stuck around a little longer than I thought it would. It's just a simple deck, easy to counter, easy to prepare for. And then Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX. It doesn't have the speed for this format, and the decks that don't have the speed have sniping and multiple knockout potential, and I think Shadow Rider Calyrex just kind of has neither. Single Strike Urshifu can pop anything for a 1-hit on turn 2. Suicune can hit anything for a 1-hit turn 2. And then we have Dragapult, Urshifu, Jolteon that can all knock out multiple things pretty much any turn of the game past turn 1. Like I said, we had Leafeon. It's the best matchup for... it's the only bad matchup in the competitive metagame for Single Strike Urshifu. Sylveon's clunky, Zacian's easy to counter. Then we have Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX, which is a solid deck. It just doesn't keep up or have what the other decks offer, in my opinion, which brings it all the way down to number 10 for now. So let's take a look at the lists. We've got number 1, Single Strike Urshifu VMAX with Umbreon. This list is from Math Liu, placed top 16 at the Chill/Late Night Invitational. The Tool Scrapper, Tool Jammer has been something that is pretty common. Sometimes one of those cards will be cut for a Scroll of Scorn tool, and sometimes one of the switches will be switched for a second air balloon. We've got Gabriel SEMEDO's first place Chill Series 46 Suicune Ludicolo, and I believe this is the same list I featured in last month's best decks in format video. It was Gabriel's Suicune Ludicolo list, or my version of Gabriel's list with like 1 change in it, but this list is more or less still the norm for Suicune Ludicolo decks. Next, we have Rain's first place Chill Invitational list of Dragapult VMAX with 2 Fan of Waves. I've seen mixtures of Hammers and Fan of Waves. I've seen Yell Grunt, and just like this one, I've seen just the Fan of Waves to get rid of special energies, but not put the full 4 Hammers in that actually don't guarantee anything. You have these Fan of Waves that do guarantee something, but only in some situations. Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX Gumi 47 placed first at the Chill Series number 50, which was the finale for the Chill Series as of Pokemon TCG Online. We will see what happens with that after PTCG Live is announced and released. This Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, I think it is just so built to the T to just function for Rapid Flow. You have 3 Raihan in this list and 2 Telescopic Sight. The list just wants to go keep calling, get knocked out, Raihan Rapid Flow, maybe work a Gale Thrust into there somewhere, maybe even Rapid Flow 3 times in one game. We'll see what happens, but the deck is just very, very built towards Urshifu and accepts its shortcomings against the Psychic decks. It's not trying to fit in any funny business, so I like how consistent and straightforward this is, and it won a 300+ person tournament, so it was able to get over having bad matchups in the metagame. Next is MIKELAG's top 4 Chill Invitational list of Jolteon VMAX with the 1 Duskull, 1 Rare Candy, 1 Dusknoir with Spectral Breach ability line in the deck, which is a tech against Rapid Strike Urshifu and Single Strike Urshifu and just any deck with special energy in them, like other Jolteon decks or Dragapult VMAX with horror energy. Dusknoir makes all special energies in play only provide 1 colorless energy and have no extra effects. And really, you'd only put this into play against decks where it's really going to hurt them, so you're not hurting yourself with your speed energies and whatnot if you don't need to. But quite a cool tech there that is only a 3-card tech. It is a lot of slots, but it has a very strong effect. Other than that, the deck is pretty similar to most Jolteon VMAX lists I've seen. I think a lot of the VMAX plus Inteleon lists have just been kind of solidified as to how they should be built, give or take 2 or 3 cards. Speaking of VMAX plus Inteleon and being solidified, VINI Fernandez changed it up with this list with the 4 Scoop Up Nets and Chat Tot with Lucky Match, which has the same supporter retrieving ability as Eldegoss V, except it's on a coin flip. So you have those Scoop Up Nets to keep flipping. Pokemon Center Lady has made it into many Leafeon VMAX decks, and I think it's really good because we have all this damage counter placing and damage spread and sniping going on in the format, so Pokemon Center Lady just makes sense. Next, we have Vaughn's 2nd place Ice Rider Calyrex Suicune list from the Chill Late Night Invitational Tournament. And this list doesn't really have anything crazy going on. It's got Fan of Waves, which I've actually had in this list since the very beginning of Evolving Skies, just because I think Fan of Waves is a nice tempo swing sometimes with all the capture energy that's around. Playing 3 quick shooting Inteleons in this list to make up for extra damage, since Cali and Suicune cannot one-shot any VMAXs, or frankly even get close to one-shotting VMAXs, but they do quite well against opposing V Pokemon, and he does have the 1 Cape of Toughness in there for Suicune V. Next, we've got REIJI's top 16 Invitational Sylveon VMAX Rapid Strike Box list, featuring Urshifu VMAX, Galarian Moltres V, Blaziken VMAX, and the new Celebrations Zacian V, which has the ability that allows you to search your deck for a basic psychic energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon, and end your turn. So you get that guaranteed turn 1 energy attachment, much like Leafeon V, except here you can add Fog Crystal to your deck because that gets the Zacian, it gets your Sylveon, and it gets basic psychic energy. At my 9th spot in the top 10 decks, we've got Zacian Zamazenta, and I'm using possibly the same list as September's top 10 video. Again, for this one. Anti's top 8 from CELIOSTATS number 2. This deck doesn't have much innovation past this. I've seen players play a Crobat V in it, but I am not a fan of that myself. I've also seen some Sir Chester Baths in these decks as well, but this is just a deck built to be pretty straightforward. It's kind of on a budget, but also competitive. And if players decide to stop teching for Zamazenta or play decks that are just poor against Zamazenta, then this deck will probably become a little bit better again. And lastly, we have Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX, and this is actually my current list for Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX because I haven't seen anybody make this exact list. It's not very hard to make, but this is what I think is optimal, so I've put it up here. And you could find this list as well as all my other ones on PokemonCard.io. It's using the new Zacian V, and I think Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX sorely needed a 2-prize attacker. Zacian V is not an amazing 2-prize attacker, but it gets that chip of damage in and let Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX finish up after. And more importantly, Zacian V's ability gives you a guaranteed extra attachment on turn 1, whether you're going first or second, whereas Cresselia only works going second. So I do like the Zacian V inclusion from Celebrations in Turbo Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX. Here are the top 10 decks again that I've ranked for October. From 1st to 10th, we have Single Strike, Suicune Ludi, Dragapult, Rapid Strike Urshi, Jolteon, Leafeon, Ice Rider Cali, Sylveon, Zacian Zam, and Shadow Rider. Shout out to my sponsors, PoTownStore.com, PokemonCard.io, and CardTrooperGames.com. And please remember to subscribe to this channel for daily Pokemon TCG content. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. I can't believe it. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Leave a like and a comment if you did enjoy the video, and I'll see you next time here on Celios Network.